Yo, I bet you didn't know that dying and sleeping are basically the same thing. Tune into this info, and no need to fear death, y'all.
What is similar about those two pictures we're looking at? They're both in bed, they both have covers and they have pillows, they're both lying down, and they both appear to be unconscious. Now, as far as relating to them, it's hard for us to relate to the top picture because we haven't died, at least in our memory, and so we don't have that experience. So we question it, and we're faced with trying to explain that experience in the top picture, and we've done that all of our lives. But we can relate to the bottom picture. We experience the same experience as that bottom picture every day. And so we absolutely know what's going on with that bottom picture. There's nothing to not understand. There's nothing to not be able to discuss and explain. We're all totally aware of it. So let us take a look at what happens to the person in the bottom picture in order to get a clarity as to what happens to the person in the top picture. Okay? Now, the following is a result of a groundbreaking experiment from the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. So, this is what it says. The University of Wisconsin report on dreams. Brain disconnects during deep sleep. The University of Wisconsin at Madison study says, as we slip into deep sleep, higher regions of our brains take a vacation from each other, disconnecting so much that consciousness is stuffed out, and a once highly integrated organ becomes separated, according to a groundbreaking experiment by the University of Wisconsin-Madison researchers. Now, just to kind of confirm that, I had a report from MSNBC. Brain areas disconnect during deep sleep. Experiments shed light on what happens to consciousness during sleep. So what's the difference between consciousness and the lack of it? In the deepest part of sleep, the various nodes of your cranial internet all lose their connections. The brain breaks down into little islands that can't talk to one another, said the study leader Giulio Tononi of the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Okay? Now this happens to you every day of your life. When you sleep, the brain internet in your head loses all connections. It disconnects. Notice where it relates to a lack of consciousness. But in reality, and next that I see you next week, they did a study, a mathematical study, which is very interesting, and I will share it with you next week. The mathematical study said that the chances of you ever losing your consciousness. In other words, I am who I am inside of here. You all can say the same thing. I am me. You can say that. The mathematical chances of you losing consciousness ever is zero. Interesting. But this lack of consciousness that never happens is where we have to think deeply. Now, when you go to sleep, you experience different things. You see different people. It's very vibrant. You talk to people. You do things. Well, if you lost consciousness, then you couldn't do that. When you're so-called dreaming, you're aware of something and you're experiencing it.
That part.
It is very clear.
That part.
It is graphic. So you have to have consciousness when your body sleeps, and you know that for a fact. In other words, it is absolutely impossible to not have consciousness. I mean, your body is asleep. The brain has disconnected. involved in all of these different things, meeting different people, doing different things, making plans and all this. How is that how could you possibly be asleep if all that's going on and you're aware of it?
Exactly.
And that is
Let 'em know,
really
Bill.
an interesting point to ponder. You never have been asleep. Never. And you
Never.
never will be
Never
asleep
will.
because the photon does not sleep. So the point is, if your brain has disconnected, yet you have not lost consciousness because you're involved in all of these different things with different people in these dream things, say, you haven't lost consciousness. How was it? And think of this carefully. How was it possible for you to see those things? How is it possible for you to have talked with these people? How is it possible for you to have done all of these things when you were asleep?
Facts.
You couldn't be asleep.
Come on. I want to hear it. Let's hear the comments.
See? If your brain is disconnected, yet you've not lost consciousness, how is it possible? There is no brain connected here. We proved that with this. And yet you are totally awake, and your dream proves it. You're doing all kinds of stuff. You've flown in airplanes, you've ridden boats, you've gone to the store, you've talked to all kinds of crazy things. Not crazy, but all kinds of things. When you were supposed to be asleep, but you weren't.
Facts.
If you were unconscious, then you could not have seen these things and met these people who you consider to be in a dream. So that means you're conscious, but your brain isn't working. You're conscious, but your brain isn't working, and yet in that state that you're in, you're able to make decisions. You say, well, I'm going to do this. Oh, let me see that. I'll take a look at that. You're making decisions with an analytical brain, yet your brain is shut down. How is that possible? Your brain is disconnected, yet in this thing you call a dream, you're planning things, you're doing things, you're changing things, you're doing everything that you do today, tomorrow. You're experiencing, which means you're not using the brain in your head here because that's shut down. You're using the brain in your head someplace else. You have to use a brain to do things. Have you ever had a dream where you made a decision to do something, or where you said, I'm going to do this, or what do you want me? And you're doing all this analyzing, and you're doing it without a brain. How's that possible? You call it a dream.